Okay. All righty. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad to see you all. Um, do we have anybody who's new with us today? Don't think so. So why don't we, Lucy, you want to start this morning and kind of give people an update on what's happening?
Throwing me right there in there. Good
I
morning,
am.
everybody. How's it going? My name is Lucy Howell. I'm the co-founder of the Force for Health Network, and I have been working with Steve to co-lead a health and education task force to see how we can take some of these pearls of wisdom that come out of these weekly meetings into action into our communities throughout the state. So we have been meeting over the summer. We are leaning into a second phase of the task force. We meet every other Thursday from 3 to 4. Everybody is welcome to join. This is a very transparent task force, and don't think it's too late to ever show up and contribute. But one of the things that are coming out of that task force is a new monthly live broadcast called My Healthy Broadband and co-hosted and in partnership with this AZBSN Health and Education Task Force. So our first one is today at 3, and it is going to be live on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And I will put a link in the chat. You may have received some information on an email that Steve sent out yesterday. And, interaction and participation is always welcome. So it's a little different than a traditional Zoom meeting. If you are going to watch it from one of the 3 platforms, if you comment into the thread, we could potentially pull those comments in and go ahead and have a dialogue around it. So today's segment is really kind of kicking it off. Why are we here? What is AZBSN? And what some of the focus points are. The second segment will be featuring As One, and that really should kind of be a stand. Is Kelly on the line right now, Steve?
No.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know Kelly Mukherjee, she is the executive director of the As One mapping project, which is based out of the CIO's office at ASU. And they do all sorts of stories about broadband implications and map it out on the map. And so she'll be talking about that and some of the things and why broadband affects social determinants of health and why broadband perhaps can address uh, implications around access to healthcare. Our third segment will be featuring, spotlight on schools and libraries. Libraries and schools have been a huge point of interest for us to where we can help further support families and increase their knowledge of why digital health literacy and access are so important. So we'll be featuring a partner from Tucson Unified School District, out of their FACE department, Family Advocacy Community Engagement Department, which is the touch point to support families. And so recently they were awarded 40 laptops from their partnership from Starbucks. And so we're going to talk about that. And then the last segment will be kind of leaning into the fact that it's Digital Inclusion Week next week. So just kind of some calls to action. What does that mean to you? So that is it in a nutshell. And again, it's going to be live, and we are coming to this group for future guest speakers. We are just going to pilot this for 3 months, October, November, December, on the first Thursday of the month, and we're going to see how it goes. And our goal with this broadcast is to start putting this conversation in a public facing way so that maybe more leaders, whether you're a family leader, a community leader, start understanding more of the implications about why broadband connectivity is so important. So that's that.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy, and thank you for all your work and getting that off the ground. Just a quick reminder in my newsletter and last week and again this week, that there's a notification about signing on to a letter to Attorney General Mays and Governor Hobbs regarding Digital Equity Act cancellation and encouraging them to take a lead in communicating if that's possible with the federal government, about the cancellation. It's very simple. You just click on it and you can take you to a form. You put your name in there. You don't have, there is a sample letter if you want to draft your own letter, or if you just want to sign on, you just fill out the form, take you 10 minutes or less, and just register your interest.
Uh-oh,
So,
Steve, I think you froze.
uh-oh.
I saw that too. I was wondering if it was me, but no.
Yeah, but
Can you hear me now?
we can.
Interesting. My internet connection is unstable, which is really interesting. I just put a new router and a new modem on my system recently. So anyway, am I good now?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. Um, so let's jump on to a couple of other things real quickly. Melanie, can I put you on the spot to give us a quickie hello and update about what's happening with the Arizona
Put me on the spot, huh?
Hello, there you go.
Great.
Arizona telemedicine program. There we go.
Yeah, when I first logged on, I didn't have my headset in, and the dogs heard you talking, but I didn't have the volume high, and they just took off barking. So
Okay.
I don't know if you said anything to me because I couldn't hear it by then. Anyways,
Okay.
all right. So hi everyone, I'm Melanie Escher with the Arizona Telemedicine Program, Southwest Telehealth Resource Center here based at the University of Arizona. And let's see. We got a lot going on. We've got a lot of webinars coming up in October, November, where I'm in the process of putting together our schedule for next year for our educational trainings, CME webinars. We've been attending various community events and exhibiting. We were up in Flagstaff last week on Wednesday for the Tribal Summit. And one of my colleagues, Tara Sklar, was a speaker up there as well. And Mike and I went up and attended and exhibited at the table. Made for a really long day because I went up and back in the same day. Anyways, so that's it in a nutshell. We're really excited about our new director, Dr. Finkelstein, and the vision he's taken us, and it's pretty exciting. We got a lot of things coming up, a lot of balls in the air right now, so to speak.
So Melanie, I know we were going to talking about, and I was going to meet with him at some point too, but you just mentioned that he's taken you in some new directions and stuff, and so it'd be really good to hear either from you or from him about what that looks like. Where are you guys going? For those of you who don't know, the Arizona telemedicine program is one of the top telemedicine programs, if not the top telemedicine programs in the country. And they have been for years, been doing really great work. So it'll be great, Melanie, to hear more about, where you guys are going and what your plans are.
That would be great. I think Dr. Finkelstein would be the best person to help identify that. So yes, we're trying to get together your schedule and his schedule to be able
Sounds
to
good.
touch base.
Sure. I'm sure he's quite busy.
Yes, he is.
You
We
were
all are,
without-
for that matter. Good grief.
You
Yeah.
were without a director for what, 4 or 5 months or more?
No, we've had an interim director, but Dr. Weinstein passed
Oh,
away a
that's
few
true.
years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's been what 3 years we've had an interim director. So anyways, but yeah.
So, Steve, can I add something here?
You certainly can.
This is Mala. And yes, I've been working with Dr. Finkelstein on doing some webinars for our libraries on topics pertinent to them. One of those that we're looking at right away is, snake poison in Arizona, because Arizona is, of course, a place with a lot of rattlesnakes and things like that. So a couple of our libraries, we would be doing a webinar. When possible, we could have the presenter be live, but otherwise it could be also a canned webinar that could be screened to an audience interested in the topic, on the days and times that works for the library, because doing a live webinar is kind of dicey because all libraries are not working same hours. So, and sometimes there's staffing issues and things like that. So yes, I'm working with him on a few topics like that. So just wanted to update you on that.
Great. Thanks, Mala.
Mhm.
Sam, do you have a time commitment here? Are you good? Can I do a few more announcements first, or do
Yeah,
you
of
need to
course.
jump on right away?
No, go right ahead, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Um, Michelle, you want to give a quick update? You got an event coming up soon, and you also had put some stuff in the chat.
Absolutely. We are hosting a community service provider forum. Okay, stop. Michelle Simon, Director of Pima County's Office of Digital Inclusion. Good
Thank you.
morning, everybody. But we are hosting a community service provider forum where we will be talking about broadband infrastructure, device access, and technical support, and all the things that go along with that. The event is on October the 7th from 8:30 to 12:30. It is a hybrid meeting, so for those who can attend in person, great. We have food and snacks. For those who cannot, the action will be just as fun. If you are interested in attending, feel free to put some in the chat and I will send you the agenda and the meeting invite. And then the thing that I put in the chat, Pima County, as we're working to streamline our processes and deal with updating permitting and fiber license agreements and all that good stuff, we've essentially created, we call it the front door on the Connect Pima website. And on that web page, you will find information for ISPs, and it's the steps that they need to take in order to be able to deploy broadband infrastructure in Pima County. So that's a very new thing, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat with you. And yeah, I see a couple of people said that they want to sign up for the community service provider forum, so I'll get that information to them when I am not driving in my car.
And it is also in my newsletter for those of you who haven't read it, who haven't scanned it, that there is a calendar of events. And if I really encourage you, if you don't do anything else, is scan the calendar of things that are coming up that may be of interest to you. So some of them are national, some of them are state, and some are local kinds of things. So just I try to keep up with things that I'm aware of that are going on. So speaking about things that are going on, Kelly, can I put you on the spot and just talk a little bit about what's happening with Digital Inclusion Week?
Sure. I'm not the best representative of it, but good morning, everyone. Kelly Mukherjee from ASU's Enterprise Technology. Good morning, Sam. I'm here wearing multiple hats. So I think Steve is asking me to wear my AIDEN board member hat. AIDEN is Arizona Digital Inclusion Network. And through AIDEN, we are helping to celebrate Digital Inclusion Week through art. So I will go find the sign up sheet. I think the sign up sheet's already over, but we can probably make exceptions if anybody's really interested. Really, the idea is there will be, I think on October 10th, there is going to be a live stream showcasing how art weaves into the beautiful digital inclusion work. So that could come in the form of poetry, paintings, and other forms of art. It is up to you of how you define art. So if you'd like more information, I'll put my information in the chat so that we can connect. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Kelly. And Paloma, I know you're still fairly new with the Office of Digital Inclusion here in Pima County, but you want to just, again, give us a quickie update on what you're working on and how we can help you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm still very much in the beginning stages of things. Right now, I'm working on some internal trainings for some digital literacy platforms that ODI might be implementing. North Star, if anyone's familiar with that one. That one's created by Literacy Minnesota, I believe. And I'll be going out of town in a couple of hours, actually. But when I get back, I'll be planning on doing some research on some digital navigation trainings. And I have been scheduling interviews with a lot of awesome community leaders. I actually have Laura scheduled with me today. I will have to reschedule with Laura, so I'll be sending her an email later. But right now, I'm just speaking with people, getting to know more about the resources that are out there. I don't think I need anything from anyone right now, but if I do, I have all of your emails and I know how to reach you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paloma. Glad you're
Thank you.
joining us. Okay, Mala, do you have any updates, either
Yeah, I can do a quick
state
update.
library or federal,
Yes,
besides the fact the federal government's gone?
I'll do some quick E-rate updates and stuff like that. 24 waves, we've received commitment already about for $45 million for E-rate for Arizona schools and libraries. But we've had a setback. And on Tuesday, FCC had a meeting where they spoke about Wi-Fi on school buses and hotspots. They voted to overturn both those programs. Kind of introduced it into the agenda last minute, so there was no time for anyone to comment on it, except Shelby and ALA that had both had their letters ready, the protest letters ready to say that this was not a good
Well,
idea. But
excuse me, Mala, can you just tell people quickly who Shelby and ALA
sorry.
is, please?
I'm Mala Muralidharan. I work at the state library. I'm the state E-rate administrator for public libraries. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, no,
Sorry
Mala,
about
I
that.
was talking about also people may not know who Shelby and ALA is.
Oh, okay. Shelby is Schools, Health, Libraries, Broadband Coalition. It's a coalition of all broadband service providers, as well as it's a membership organization. So anyone who wishes to join, who has an interest and stake in broadband, can join. The ALA is the American Library Association, which takes care of the welfare of all our libraries. I am on their E-rate task force, so I work on issues related to E-rate, bubble up everything from the grassroots level to the national level to work on policies and programmatic guidance. So FCC had an open meeting on 30th of September, and one of the agenda items was school bus Wi-Fi and hotspot lending. Both these were introduced pretty recently, like a couple of years ago, for being E-rate eligible. Now, E-rate reimburses schools and libraries for their internet as well as their internal connections. It is an annual application, a complicated application to say the least, and each application takes almost 3 years to complete from start to finish. So it is complex. But this was introduced pretty recently by the previous chairman, FCC chairman Jessica Rosenworcel, and the new FCC chair, Brendan Carr, whom you all must have heard about with the Jimmy Kimmel program and stuff like that. So he introduced a declaratory ruling to overturn it, and this ruling hearing came up on the 30th, and it was overturned. Fortunately, the one good thing is that though there were rumors about about the 2024 E-rate applications that had been already approved, also being overturned. Like I told you, the E-rate program is almost a 3-year program from start to finish. So now is the billing stage for the 2024 applications. And the service has already been rendered, and at this stage, FCC was going to turn it down. And fortunately for us, during the hearing, they decided that that's not going to happen. It's 2025 onwards that will be ineligible. So those who had applied for it in 2024, who had been approved and who have used the services, can still submit their invoices to claim reimbursement. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the service providers who are on this call, as well as libraries and schools, can please check the USAC website. They have the new eligible services draft posted. This was posted by FCC right before the 1st of October. It was posted on 30th September. So they just did it before the closure. FCC is closed, and the staff are not able to respond to any of the queries or anything else. But USAC is open, and they are still continuing their funding operations as of now, until if they have anything that they have to refer to FCC, that will be shelved until FCC is open for business again. Back to you, Steve, unless there are any questions.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Mala? Okay. Any other quick announcements before we get to Sam?
Steve, Mark Goldstein,
Go ahead, Mark.
International Research Center and Arizona Telecom and Information Council. You've made two asides about nothing happening because the federal government is shut down. I do want to note that the Department of Commerce shutdown plan notes that 3/4 of NTIA's employees are not on the annual budget allocations, but are funded out of a grant flow and are not shut down and continue to work on BEAD, middle mile grants that already have been granted, and tribal broadband communication program grants. So NTIA, as far as grant work, is not shut down.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Anything else?
Good to know.
No,
Okay.
just hi, Samantha. I did lead GMA's team for Centra WISP's successful Pennsylvania BEAD application, and now the successful USDA telecom program loan.
Yes, I saw your name, Mark. I recognize that.
Enjoyed working with you early on in that. Thank you.
Hey, we very much did as well, and congratulations on two wins on their behalf. So Mark knows the stuff.
Okay, if there isn't any other announcements, then let's get to our main attraction this morning. We're glad to welcome Samantha. She was actually scheduled a few weeks ago and decided to get COVID and take it easy instead. So I think you're feeling better, if I understand, Samantha, and wish you a quick recovery. In the meantime, we appreciate you being here this morning. And so Sam is engaged in, I'm just going to let her introduce herself and tell you about some of the research work that they're doing specifically as it relates to digital inclusion. And what the conversation I had with her is that after her presentation today, that we may talk about how do we begin an ongoing discussion group on digital inclusion and what's happening here in Arizona. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Sam, and welcome, Sam, and glad you're feeling better.
Thanks, Steve. It's always a pleasure, and there's so many great friends and faces on this call, so it's an honor to join. I don't know if I can live up to the main attraction title, but I am happy to share some things that I've been working on a little bit with my colleagues at Connect Humanity, and I have and at Hawk Network. So we have Silas and Erica from my team also on the call. So this all came about because I think, Steve, you came across a blog article that I co-wrote with Angela Seifer over at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. She was unfortunately unable to join us today. I did ask. She's in Brussels at the moment, so
That's a good excuse.
doing big things. Yeah, being the international traveler she is. But yeah, I will get some members of her team connected with you in the future. So I dropped two links in our chat. One is a link to that article that Steve that you saw initially, and the second one is actually the preceding article that really kicked all this off. So what it is this. Ultimately, as we all know, we have seen a retraction of a lot of federal funding that was expected to go towards supporting digital inclusion, equity, opportunity programs in our states, right? We have a lot of organizations that were depending on that funding. We had big plans written by states and local geographies around the kind of supports that they wanted to see to help support and reinforce the investments in infrastructure we were planning to see. A lot of that has been retracted, and the impact of that has been pretty far reaching because it wasn't just the loss of the Digital Equity Act funds, which those were significant. It's also the calling into question of the BEAD non-deployment funds, of which portions of those were slated for this use. There's still TBD on that, and I know there are efforts to fight for those dollars still. Um, there was quite a big loss of IMLS funding that supported work in libraries and whatnot. So there's been a lot of ripple effects of the loss from the loss of federally sourced and state forced dollars that have gone into supporting community technology work broadly.
Now, can I interrupt you
Yes.
for a second? Can you
Yes.
talk, just explain to people, I think most folks probably know about the non-deployment funds issue.
Hmm.
Could you
Oh,
just
what is that?
give a little more shot about what that's about?
Sure. Simply put, the non-deployment funds were basically any funds left over. This was under the initial infrastructure rules and whatnot, is there were the state allocations for BEAD for serving the large percentage. I think is 87% of the overall BSL broadband serviceable locations in the state. If they had money left over after meeting that large threshold, they were allowed to use those for quote unquote non-deployment uses. That could mean things like pole replacements. It could mean permitting refinements. It could mean staffing. It also could mean digital skills programming, device access programs, things of that nature. So, because of that, there were a lot of states that had done their initial BEAD action plans, had an idea of around the amount of money that they might have left over, and were already making plans to use some of those funds to support programs that were outlined in their initial digital equity plans that were published. So when first DEA was revoked, the states were like, oh, well, we'll still have these non-deployment dollars, and then the administration has started to monkey around with the BEAD deployments, driving costs down, basically communicating that they're going to claw back these funds. And while that has not happened yet in full, every time I talk to the broadband offices, I have heard that they are continuing to get beat up on driving costs down further and further and further. And it seems that nobody is real optimistic about their prospect of being able to keep what is amounting to a very large amount of non-deployment funds at this point. The last number I saw, and I don't know where we are at this point, but it was fairly recently. We went from 42 billion allocated to BEAD to less than, I think, 15 billion is now allocated. And they are now in a final round of benefit of the bargain to drive even those numbers down further. So, under the original rules, it would mean that the gap between 15 billion and 42 would have been non-deployment funds. That seems to be unlikely. Whether or not states will be effective in fighting for some portion of those funds is to be determined. But that's what we're talking about. So there was an initial expectation that some of that money would be able to be put into supporting digital equity and inclusion adoption, efforts broadly.
So that's really important to know that it wasn't just the initial digital inclusion money, but there was
Correct.
also this non-deployment money.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people didn't understand that that was another pot of money that we were kind of hoping to see.
Correct. And so between the loss of DEA, the potential loss of non-deployment, retraction of several IMLS. So IMLS, and please don't make me think about what the acronym is, but it's basically the
Mala
foundation.
can tell you. Mala can tell
Yes,
you.
MALA. MALA, what does the acronym stand for? I always butcher it.
Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We use these acronyms so often, we just forget what they mean. Yes, a lot of those funds have been retracted and cut and whatnot. And I know that staff over at IMLS has been greatly reduced, and including some friends of mine that were over there. So that funding used to support a lot of the technology initiatives, including just the broadband subscriptions of libraries in many, many places. And I know that several libraries that we are connected to through grantee organizations that we worked with on the Appalachia Digital Accelerator program have been hit with that and are really concerned about being able to continue to be a community touch point for connectivity and digital navigation. And so this is really impacting the digital equity space very, very broadly. It's kind of hitting us in all the places that, all of the places that we would find stability are being undermined in this field. So I say that not to depress everyone, although it is very depressing. Um, it is not the first time that we've been here, although it might be a little worse than the last time. And my colleagues will eye roll as I say my tagline phrase is back after BTOP. So some of you might remember the last time the federal government made a major investment in digital equity and connectivity, and that was the Broadband Technology Opportunities Program. Also, that was under NTIA. This was around 2007 to about 2013, broadly gave, the up until BEAD, it was the historically largest investment in technology support. And so we did that supported adoption programs, middle mile networks, anchor institution connectivity. It was quite a large program then as well, although not as big as BEAD. That also had us in a place where we created quite a lot of jobs, programs, organizations, supports within our community to support community adoption and meaningful use of broadband technologies. It was the first time that there was a major federal investment in that. And at the end of that program, I ran the second largest adoption program in the country at the time. It was called Connect Your Community, if you've ever heard of it, if there are any BTOP folks on the call. We had over 100 staff members. We had 75 community partners, 15 lead agencies across 5 states. And in 2013, all of the funding ended. there was no sustainability strategy. And I use the gut number. This is not an accurate, like an official number. About 80% of the digital equity workforce from that period of time evaporated within the year between 2012 and 2013. And so I remember that. I lost my job and I was amongst those shown the unemployment line. So, I mean, this is a very real thing. And, this is coming on the heels of something that everyone was celebrating as this great victory and this great impact and win for communities. And that's what we did to the people that were responsible for helping those create those impacts. So when we lost DEA and we have found the same thing, this feels very much like a deja vu moment. And so earlier in the year, I grabbed a bunch of my colleagues and friends, many of which who have been through this with me in the past and others. And my colleagues, connected me and they were like, what are we going to do? And we need to think of things. How do we make digital opportunity, equity, inclusion, whatever word you want to use for it? How do we create programming that is sustainable and contextualized within the community frameworks? And so this was something that we worked on to start building a conversation. So both of these blog articles speak to this. In 2013, I started a project that ended and concluded in 2019. So it took a while to both pitch the ideas, get it, create the partnerships and then the deliverable, which we worked with a county at the time. And what we figured is there's a huge overlap between social service recipients and the digital divide, right? Those that lacked connectivity were also mostly low income, people that didn't have the means to buy a computer or afford a subscription at that time. And so seeing that overlap, we decided how can we contextualize within the administration of social service delivery? This is just an example. Ultimately, the long story short, and if you are interested in reading a long 80-page exhaustive report on it, I have a link for you and happy to share it. But the long and short is if you could put $2 million into a seed fund and train over 1,000 people a year to take of an average of 6 transactions, I say transactions like interactions with social service administration officials, like a case worker or whatever. People on average have 6 per year. If you could take 2 of those 6, transfer them to online, you would return $24 million in cost avoidance and return on investment through gained efficiency within a 2-year span. Very, very staggering numbers. Plus, you would have all these ancillary benefits that would drive down people's duration of time in which they would rely on these social services because they would be more employable, improving health outcomes, all of these myriad of additional things. So it's an interesting concept. In 2019, we put this before County Council. This is Cuyahoga County, where I live. And Cuyahoga County agreed to invest in this model. Unfortunately, a few months later, before we stood the program up, COVID happened. Everything kind of was diverted. And we were then, both into emergency, just keep the lights on, keep people fed. And then we were focused on BEAD and DEA with the Infrastructure Act following pretty shortly after that. Well, ARPA and then this. So we started getting distracted again by federal funds. So we never fully came together and figured out how to solve the problem. The bottom line here is that if we continue to focus the structure of our programs and our community strategies around technology use on federal funds, it will forever be this off and on again, thing that fails to build momentum and long-term sustainability. So it's a difficult problem, right? Because in order to do it differently, changing the way for instance, social services administered, creating those systems and processes that cut across silos, cut across partnerships is hard, right? There's tons of stakeholders that need to be involved, agreed to. All of this work needs to happen in order to get to a place where it becomes truly sustainable and self-fulfilling. So this is the problem. This is the problem. This is the carrot that we're trying to follow. And so we have created, we being Connect Humanity, has stood up a working group. We call it very simply the Alternative Funding Working Group. It is a group of people from all over the country. We have people that are in several different states, rural, urban, everything in between, that has everyone has been grappling with this problem and this challenge. Everyone says, yep, we got to fix this, right? Otherwise, we're just going to continue to find ourselves here. And so we're looking to find, are there sustainable models in communities? First of all, like, we believe that this probably exists somewhere, right? There are probably examples of people that have figured this out somewhere. Let's find them. Let's learn about those models. Can they be replicated? Can they be scaled, right? If they haven't been created, and that's another real possibility, because this group we are about 35, large and pretty far-reaching national, leadership level constituents. We haven't been able to find too many examples. So it's possible that we're talking about creating new models here. Where are those opportunities for cross-sector partnership? Where are they? And so we've been bringing together experts in healthcare to understand where are those opportunities in education, where are there, co-investment opportunities, workforce, where do businesses benefit from this work? We know that economic value is created when we create better, more savvy, more meaningful users of internet technology and connected technologies. We know that, right? We know people start businesses, they shop online, they are better with talking to their doctor, they're making online appointments, they're banking, they're doing all of the things that generate general economic value. How do we capture that, measure it, and reinvest it? That's the task of the alt funding group. So we have just started a project around this. The most recent blog post was a call to researchers. So Angela and I have put our heads together and are in the pursuit of trying to elevate or identify the models that might already exist, in addition to any kind of research studies or data sets that would be used to measure these kind of things. We have made a call to the broad research community. If you've seen this, tell us about it. So far, the response has been a lot of pats on the back. This is such a great idea. Glad that you're focusing on it. Don't have anything to contribute unless you have money, and I would love to do the research. So that's generally the feedback we've got, which is both validating, but also disappointing to hear. Like there's not a lot of this type of thinking out in the wild. Not to say that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying this is like exhaustive due diligence here, but it means that it's not front of mind and it's not highly, we don't have a lot of awareness. So a lot of work that needs to be done. What's at stake, though, is really the future of the digital opportunity field, right? And I think any of you on the call that have done this work and have, spent your blood, sweat, and tears and, trying to push this ball forward and have stood, in front of someone who has taken classes for the first time, come out with a new skill and has had it change their life, knows the value of this work. And I'm lucky enough that I've done that so many times that it has made me an advocate for sure. So anyways, I just want to throw that out there. That's what we've been thinking about. We don't have any silver bullets. I don't think there is a one size fits all, But I do think that this is a conversation that task force like this one should start thinking about as, because every room I've ever been in with a digital equity crowd it has people that represent everyone from libraries to health institutions to housing authorities to banking institutions. There's people that represent stakeholders of pretty much every social service area of our communities. And so, what could be done by co-investing, leveraging each other's resources, partnering together, breaking down those silos, and better targeting the creation of our programs to serve each other's needs and key performance indicators that help us to co-fund and also co-share in the benefits of these programs. So anybody is welcome to join the alt funding group. These are the conversations we have on a currently monthly basis, although we're going to be stepping them up to weekly as we have a first money and grant from the Mission Telecom Giving Foundation to kick off a guide on this topic. So we have partnered with numbers of our alt funding group members to help us co-lead on the creation. This is very much going to be a democratically led initiative and product. And there is room for everyone's voice if you are so inclined to join us for the conversation. That's it. Happy to have a conversation about this, though.
So, Sam, I know you're still in the early stages. It's amazing. It's an issue that everybody is wrestling with right now. Federal level, state level, and as you and I talked about. So, the problem is that we're also, in addition to seeing cuts in digital equity, that we're seeing cuts in healthcare and food service and all kinds of things that are going to trickle down to states and local communities who are now having to even further decide where their priorities and their money is going to be spent. But I'm wondering, in your discussion, and it's, I know you're still very early in this process, and I would like to be a part of your group, by the way. But I know you're very early in this process. But have you had any discussion at this stage about how to help states to be able to begin to address this issue? And are there any states who have actually come together and started to create a plan to address the kinds of things you're talking about?
No. No to the second thing. So, are there any states that have come up with a specific, how do we do this without federal funding plan? No, not that I'm aware of. Every state, however, has a digital opportunity plan. It was part of the early requirements of the Infrastructure Act. So we all have ideas of how we create the economic value, and we all have an idea of what that costs and who the stakeholder partners are. The thing that's missing is how to, again, identify, measure, capture, and reinvest the economic value produced by those programs. And so, that's the part that I don't think we've been thinking about, because all of our plans, all of our thinking has always been anchored in federal funding. And so if we don't have the federal funds, how do we do this sustainably, right? So, even if you could find catalytic dollars, and I think there is arguments for local and national philanthropy to come in and help to start sustainable models, catalyze that initial engine. But those arguments need to be made, and we need to figure out how to structure those partnerships. And also, this is the underlying problem here, is the stakeholders, the hospital systems, the business community, telecommunication providers, all of these people have benefited from the work that you all do around digital equity. And they've gotten that value for free, right? They just get to live in this ecosystem that you contributed to, where people have skills and the ability to use them and all of that. And they have not had to pay into that system. And so now we have to figure out, how do we create the right kind of outcomes for these programs that are enticing enough to bring them in as co-investors. And that's going to be hard. I mean, I think it's doable. And I think there's a part of this that is just, we need to do the work to figure out how to demonstrate it. But ultimately, it's going to be a difficult value proposition. And it's one that only states and communities can lead on.
So, Sam, I think when we talked, that I told you when we first started this task force years ago, and we put together a strategic plan. And
Yeah.
besides the fact that, as I mentioned, that we with a digital access task force, which in today's world is probably better than digital equity or digital inclusion, just because it's politically charged. But
Yes,
nonetheless,
unfortunately.
but the couple of things that we did when we wrote that plan was we recognized, regardless of whether there was going to be government funding, that there were other resources that were out there. But particularly many of our small organizations don't know where that money is. They don't have the time to do all the research. They don't know how to write the grants. They don't know how to manage the grants. And so we were very clear for many years, saying what we really need is to have an entity in the state, and ideally nationally, and are both, that can actually research grants, that can actually help people to find those grants. You know, researching grants. I mean, you can spend hours looking at all kinds of different grants, but people who can actually help them to find the grants focused on the things that people were interested in, rather than having to slog through hours and hours of searching grants. And so that was really important. Was to have the entity that could help to research those grants, and then secondly, to actually help people write the grants. And the third piece actually becomes, how do they manage those grants? And I think that was the same issue when we saw the potential of digital equity money, that for a lot of organizations, they couldn't apply for that money because they didn't have the infrastructure and the capability to write the grants and to manage the grants that were required. And so, but regardless of whether that money is here and comes back or whatever, that we have to find other solutions, and that there are foundations. We know the foundations are being stretched, and as our corporate,
Yes.
all kinds of other needs for healthcare and food and all kinds of things. But
And
that's not to
disaster
say that
relief has been a big one too.
exactly. And so
Mm,
there's a big stretch in looking at even demands for private sector. When I say private sector, including foundations and so forth. But there's a huge demand here. But somewhere in all that dialogue has to be this issue about digital inclusion. And of course, as you talked about, the issue of how it helps to support economic development and so
yeah,
forth. But I don't know that we haven't done that yet. I
right.
hope we get to that at some point. But I don't know if any other states, or if you happen to be aware of or never heard of any other states that have done anything like that.
You know, the only one that I know is actively thinking about it is the state of Maine. So, and they benefit. Number one, they're small, right? It's a smaller state geographically, so that helps. They also have a lead, the National Digital Equity Center there, that does statewide program delivery around this. So they have sort of a statewide, very well-known and entrenched leader that helps to convene this on a broad state level. So, you know, it's hard to compare them to an Arizona or, you know, a Pennsylvania or an Ohio or whatnot, that is much larger states, geographically much different, where we don't have a singular entity leading and whatnot. So, unfortunately, I think that this becomes very bespoke. And there's a tendency, I think, in our fields, in all philanthropic fields, to want to see the model that just works everywhere. And I think the danger here is while, our research project for the alt funding guide is going to be to elevate models, potential models that either exist or could exist theoretically, is they're going to be all of this is going to have to be bespoke at some level, right? The intention of the guide is not to say, here, take this off the shelf and plug it into your ecosystem. It's a here's examples of the ways you can start thinking about this, and then you have to kind of mold it for the types of partnerships, politics, and personalities that you have in your own backyard to figure out what really is going to work. But ultimately, this is about shifting the thinking. And when we bring people, when I started bringing people together on this topic, I get people sitting here doing this, nodding. Yes, yes, we agree, we agree. And then the conversation will go on, we'll get into the weeds, and people will revert to, and this is where we'll have to write a grant. And we're like, no, 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 no. This is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to think of. Like we want to find the business who wants to, benefit from like their employees learning digital skills, and then that trickling down. Like you're looking at not finding grant money, not trying to convince we're looking at building new types of partnerships. And it's easy to say, and I continue to be surprised with how difficult it is to to shift people's thinking around this. And so I think that's our first goal, is to just help people in communities shift the thinking as to like what the possibilities could be, where they see opportunities for partnerships and whatnot. Because I think it's going to look differently. Now, how would you do that as a state level? I think that's a good question. Lucy, yes, please join the conversation. I'm talking too much.
No, I think if anybody's familiar with the UN Sustainable Goals, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
17th US, and I'm curious if anybody knows, but the 17th Sustainable Goal is, anybody know? Gold Star? Is partnerships,
There
right?
you go. Yes.
Because it is impossible for a single entity from a public sector to lead the charge because you have the changing of administration. It is difficult for perhaps nonprofits to lead the charge because everybody's going for grants and there is really no built-in sustainability. And quite frankly, is the core of why our concept of chamber of health systems is what we're trying to bring to the table. And it is very, very difficult. There is a lot of eyebrows raised when you have a for-profit, type of partner coming to the table with publics, academia, and nonprofit because
I love it,
bad
though.
word. It's the bad word. But if the mission is to create a sandbox that people can play in and have a sustainable tail, then that's the environment that we're trying to. And we did some things in Cuyahoga County and stuff. And so I did send you a DM and I would love to talk to you.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, perfect.
My interest is peaked.
The UN Sustainable Goals, the partnership deal, it's very interesting if you look at all of that information about why it's so hard to have long-term sustainable collaboration towards, like-minded outcomes. But anyways, love you were singing my praises. I was like, oh, yes, yes, yes. It's great to meet you.
Oh, fabulous.
We should have you on the show on November for this particular issue. Quite frankly.
I'd love to talk about it because it's a really interesting thing. And here's something this has been my recent percolation. We are seeing the dismantling of a lot of systems that have supported our work, as we've exhaustively covered from the top down. This is an opportunity to create better structural support from the bottom up, right? Break the silos, people. We don't need, nonprofit and philanthropy don't need to sit over here while like business and public sectors are over here. Like we should be working together to support a community ecosystem in a much more healthy and sustainable way. We all benefit when, right, the whole thing about like boats rising. I forget the whole thing, right? But that's ultimately this is about creating sustainable and resilient communities at the core. And part of me wonders if we have lost our vision that ultimately this isn't about broadband and digital skills for broadband and digital skills sake. We're all doing this work to improve people's lives, to create better health outcomes, to create more economic mobility. That's the North Star.
And to learn from others. I mean,
Right.
everybody's in their own little silos, state to state to state to state, even within, that's like what Kelly does on the broadband mapping stuff is so interesting because telling the stories, bringing those in will kind of highlight, oh, wow, so those are all the things that we're trying to do, right,
Yes.
together. And I don't know if the broadband live thing will fall flat or not, but the concept of spotlighting communities that are doing it right and
Yes.
then seeing how it can be adopted um, and giving praise. If
100%.
Cuyahoga counties figure it out, then please share, right, with the rest of the states, and we'll see. That's why I'm always on Steve. I think Arizona, just based on what Steve has done with this group, has put Arizona in a front mover type of position because the players are at the table, in
This
terms
group
of
is one of the best
exactly.
coalitions I have seen statewide. I mean, and admittedly, I've been exposed to several. You guys are awesome. Like you are talking about things, you're tackling the hard questions. The fact that you guys show up every week, like this is investment. Like it's amazing. Yeah, you deserve some spotlighting and praise for sure.
Samantha, I think the praise goes to Steve,
Yes.
for getting 20 people together at 8 o'clock in the morning. I can't imagine anyone else being doing this for 3 continuous years. Every
Amen.
week after week.
Amen
But
to that.
I just wanted to add one thing. I did
Please.
put something in the chat about collaborations and non-monetary collaborations because a lot of people are looking for partnerships and collaborations to do plenty of things. One of the things that we were looking at when IMLS funding and got reduced was navigators. We didn't have enough funding to pay for the navigators, but at the same time, we found that the Southwest Telehealth Associate Melanie's group had partnerships with yeah, SWTRC. Now, what does that stand for? They were looking for partners. The nursing school was looking for a place where their students could go and get real life experience. They needed the community hours. We needed their skills because librarians have no time from washing their toilets to to bottle washing and opening the doors and doing their reference research. They do everything, especially in the rural areas. So and they're queasy about not they don't have the expertise to do health navigation and health information. So this is a win-win partnership,
I
you
love
know
that.
but it takes building relationships to make anything happen. It
Yes,
takes
it does.
personalities that are willing to do the collaborative work, because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen
It's
if you
true.
have the same goals. It has to have with that chemistry alignment between people to build that trust to make it happen. And you know
Yeah.
in the 50 years that I've been working with libraries, I've discovered that there is nothing that works as well as making that contact person to person and building that trust before we build that collaboration.
Yeah. Absolutely. Really, really well said, Mala. Thank you. And also underscores the value of what, Steve, you've done with this group.
Thank you. So Sam, a couple of other things, and of course Mala is well attuned to this is Shelby and the importance of anchor institutions in all of this.
Yes.
I said when we were looking at that digital equity money that we really needed to look at where community colleges can play. And we have some community colleges who are doing some really good stuff, but it's kind of piecemeal and it's a little here and a little there. And I've really been saying we need to see community colleges have a clear strategic plan about how they play. And that doesn't mean they have to do everything, but they have the infrastructure to apply for grants, to manage grants, to subcontract with grants that other smaller organizations who are doing great work don't have the capacity to do that. And so that's just been a big thing. And of course, we love our libraries and our state library and Marla and the great work. We've been so fortunate to have a great state library and great libraries here in Arizona. But I do think that we need to look more and more, and you've sort of addressed this from some of the comments that you've already made about the need to look at partnerships and relationships. But I do really think that that anchor institutions are going to have to be much more important in this. And that's not to say that they're going to fund things because they don't have any money. They don't have money either for doing things. But FEMA College is actually working on the digital equity plan and so forth. So anyway, I think that we really have to look at those kinds of things if we're going to move the needle here.
100%. I mean, government efficiency can liberate dollars if you have the broad buy-in and agreement from your government to say, if you save me the money, if you create these cost avoidances, you can have the dollars to, So, I mean, that goes back to Mala's point on partnerships. Saying you can make these arguments with health. I know there are like Medicaid reimbursement incentives that, when you bring down costs, covered care providers, like your care sources and things like that, like they get flat fees. So if you can lower their costs where they have larger revenue margins, that's potentially a partnership that would be willing to invest in this work, right? I mean, there are things that we have to understand where our levers are and how we are building those economic value propositions within our sector potential partnerships to help us invest in this work. I think that there are opportunities out there. We just haven't spent time to find them and really try to interrogate them, through our local environments and ecosystems.
So, Sam, one of the things that certainly is interesting is, some of us, I guess Mark is not on the call anymore, but myself and Mark and a number of other people have been at this game for 20 years. And we used to have a really great friend who unfortunately is no longer with us, but who was an advocate for technology and education before anybody knew what technology and education was. And he was out there all the time and talking to legislators and talking with the Department of Education and talking with the governor's office and things like that. But if you look at, just that transition in 20 years, how people have even begun to recognize how important technology was. In those days, people didn't have any idea. We started here in Tucson. I started a group and we started doing forums back in the 80s on technology. And that was before anybody knew what broadband was. They didn't know what telemedicine was. They didn't know what online shopping was. Didn't know any of those things. And we started doing forums about that. But what's happened, since that time is that people have now begun to recognize sort of what you're talking about was what's the value of how, and so people have come to recognize that, which is part of the reason why there's been more broadband money coming from the federal government and others because they've now recognized that that's important. I always tell the story that when I was doing my forums down here, we used to go to hotels, and I have one of my partners who was willing to give the hotel a free broadband connection. And they said, why would we want that? So that shows you how far back we go.
Yes.
But the point is that for a lot of people, they didn't know why this is important. And now we're beginning to recognize it. And now we're trying to figure out how do we address it. And we've come to to look at government, but government's going to be, if anything, is going to be a solution for infrastructure, not digital inclusion, in my opinion. They may
Yeah,
come up with some money here and there, and who knows? I mean,
right.
after this administration, what might happen. But I don't see on into the future, and you've sort of addressed this, that I don't see that dependency on government money for
Yeah, it's not
either.
sustainable, right?
Yeah,
Nobody, because it's always going to be starting and stopping with those, performance,
yeah,
uh, periods. And
yeah,
so no matter what, we need to figure this out, I think, at the local grassroots
yeah,
level for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
However, I want to end the conversation by saying, and yet, all of this to say, we don't have the mechanisms yet. This is a work in process. So, what we're saying is we need to think about this and put active energy and time and resource into developing our plans for the future. But today, there are opportunities to get some of that federal money, and we should not squander those because we're looking at something too long into the distance. So I do want to say that right now, the what will happen with the non-deployment dollars is not set in stone. There are people that are advocating, whether they're those that you might find on the NDIA listserv, are putting together like reach out to your local officials, right? Start that. You should. This group, you guys have cohesion. You should do a sign-on letter and send it to your governor saying, Congress already allocated this money to our state. If you don't fight for this, you are not fighting for Arizonians. And shame on you as an elected official. This is our money. We have plans for it. You have plans for it. You wrote your own plan. Like you advocate to get that money to implement the plan that was promised to the people of your state. There is no
I mean,
reason why they
there
shouldn't.
is a letter that's now being circulated with a link to be able to do that, and
Good, good.
that actually came from Benton, I think. Um, but it's very easy for people to just click on it, put their name in there, click
Yes.
submit. Thanks to Andy, to Aiden to help spread that word. That is, and it is in my newsletter, and so you can all go to that newsletter and you can
Yes.
click
Thank you,
that link
Kelly.
and just go put your name in there.
Kelly just dropped the link. I would
Okay.
say every person on this call needs to click that link and add their name.
Yeah.
And then think of five other people that they can send it to get their names on it. Like,
Yeah.
this is important. It's a lot of money. It is your money. Congress gave it to you. This administration should and does not have a right to take it back. It is your money. So fight for it. Okay, number one. Number two, and this is the one that Steve, you and I can work on this for a later time because I am not the expert here. You might have one on this call, is USF, right? There's another fight for the potential for USF funding to be hopefully sustained,
Yeah.
continued, and then potentially have a use case to support, digital adoption programming. Um, I think it's a long shot. I my personal thing is I would hope that that does not overshadow the effort to figure things out at the grassroots level, like we were talking, because this is my fear of the shiny object that just puts us into that perpetual state of like loss and funding and loss and funding. Um, but it's still there, and we should still, if we can get it, we should get it, right? Because it's going to take us time to come up with these sustainable models, and we're going to need to find that initial influx to, catalyze long-term investment. So these are things to look at if you
Yeah,
have a way
we've
to
been
support.
following the USF quite a
Good,
bit, and Mala gives us updates. She really tracks that stuff a lot. We've had a number of
fabulous.
people who've come and talked about USF, so we're very much attuned to the importance of USF, particularly as it supports, well, E-rate, telemedicine, and a whole
Fabulous.
variety of things.
Yeah,
So
Amy Huffman from NDIA said that she would be delighted to join one of these
cool.
calls and go over the things that they're hearing from on the
I
US
was just
side.
going to say, I would love to have either Angela or somebody from NDIA come and
Yes.
get set
Amy's
up.
her policy director, so she's
Okay,
excellent. Yeah.
sounds great. Sam, thank you so much. Any questions or
My
comments
pleasure.
or any other announcements that people have before we end this call today? And hopefully we'll see some of you um, on our broadcast uh, later this afternoon. You
I'm
all
going to
should have.
drop my email in here. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the alt funding working group, by all means, let me know. I know a couple of you have sent me your emails and I've noted those. So if anyone else, let me know. Happy to join.
Thank you so much, Sam, for being here
Thanks for the
today.
time. This was a fun
It,
conversation, Steve.
it's a really great thing that you're doing. It's desperately, desperately, desperately needed.
Yeah, as is the thing you're doing, Steve. Thanks
Thank
for
you. Okay, we're all done for today. Thank you all.
it. Thanks, everyone.